I'm Aoibhinn, as Emma said, currently studying cybersecurity at Belfast Met, though I have actually been involved in the tech scene in some capacity or another for about going on 10 years now. I'm not really a developer per se, but I have dabbled quite a bit over the years with a bit of Python and Bash scripting, and more recently started to try and learn some programming fundamentals with both Golang and Rust. Primarily, however, I am a system administrator, and that is the work that I have done, networking and specifically working with Linux-based systems. So as I'm sure you may or may not have been able to guess from the very cryptic title of this talk, I'm going to be talking about minimalism and trying my best to prove to you all how adopting it can ultimately and will increase your productivity, whether that is you're working as a full stack software developer, a system administrator, pen tester, or indeed anything else. So very briefly, what is minimalism? So of course it is not this, it is not the art movement from the 1950s, it is not about aesthetic as some people seem to think it is, particularly on Reddit and YouTube, with people trying to act elitist with using various different software applications that are a bit esoteric and everything's in the terminal and everything's like, look at this and I have all these key bindings and I'm like so much better than you because you know, I use this software and you use your bloated IDE like NetBeans or whatever else. It's really not about that at all. It's about trying to find software that works for you and ultimately what does work for you rather than worrying about the aesthetics of it. So if you find that using Firefox works better than using some other random web browser like, I don't know, LuaKit or Sucklus's Surf where you have to make your own menu and stuff, you know, don't do that. There's no point. It's about what works for you. Minimalism in terms of computing, really fundamentally, it's not that difficult. It's about using and designing software to use the least amount of resources possible, providing only the necessary core functionality that is required, at least initially. Often, you know, kind of, you want to make it extensible, so offers initially just that very, very core features that you can build up on top of yourself, so that way it's very bespoke to your needs, rather than piece of software where you're going to have to trawl through menus and stuff and there's going to be so many different features that you really don't even know what you're looking for. In this, you'll know exactly what you're doing because the software only has very small number of features that then you add your own features on top of. Basically an adherence to the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. Why is it important? Very briefly. Important for various different reasons. Embedded systems and serverless computing more recently. So embedded systems obviously have limited hardware resources, so you need to be very conscientious of the kind of software that you're running on them for RAM consumption and processing power and energy consumption. Serverless computing, ideally as well, you know, you want the code that you're running to be as optimized as possible to save money more than anything else. I'm going to be focusing primarily today on productivity side of things though, because as I said, I am not a software developer and it's not a subject matter that I'm most versed in. Now comes the point where I panic even more because I had written a lot more slides to this talk, but had then proceeded to do a little sort of run through with a friend, and they had asked me what my objective was, and I had said I wanted to inspire and persuade people to sort of think about software that they were using and ultimately use minimalist software, and they had told me that this was not going to achieve it. It's always good to get someone's feedback, yeah. So it was actually a person who, a few years ago, when I'd first met them, I had inspired them to use a text editor called Vim, which some of you may be familiar with. I'm very, very passionate about these different applications. Whenever they had first came into its Farsight hackerspace, I was sitting, and they were a complete novice. They'd come in, and ultimately, I straight off the bat was like, "Oh, you want to learn software development? You need to learn Vim." Da, 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 da. And because I sat down and I actually showed them how I used it and the benefits that I got out of it, they're now, it's 3 years later, and they're still using it because they actually seen the benefits. So I'm going to try and do that now. This probably would be a lot better if I was in an intimate setting where my anxiety levels are reduced. But here comes the live demo where everything goes fucking wrong. Sorry for swearing.
We're all friends. Everyone here is supporting you.
Yeah, everyone. So let's quickly exit out of that. Let me get a wee screen key going so everyone can see all the key combinations and stuff that I'm using. Has that proceeded to work? Yep, that's worked. So I, a while ago, made this little joke website. I was at PyCon Ireland, and my friend Rebecca Martin is a parrot fanatic, to say the least. She was giving a talk on, believe it was Django and writing an API or something, and the name of the API was Parrot. I'm not a software developer, so my interest levels, I also have ADHD, my interest levels just went bleh, and I decided to start working on this random thing. So basically it's just a website that every day has an image of a new parrot, using AWS and GitHub for the hosting. I'm going to attempt to recreate this right now, doing everything in terminal, so not even like looking at the browser until the very end. Fingers crossed. Apart from one tiny bit, which I had spent like 45 minutes trying to figure out a way of doing, but really couldn't figure out a way of doing. So there'll be one tiny thing I have to do in the browser, but everything else will be done in the browser. So open the browser first. Let me see. Get the text big enough. Can everyone read that? Is that big enough? Cool. So I use Tmux. Has anyone heard of Tmux? It's basically more used on servers to continue terminal session. So connectivity issues sometimes arise. Tmux, what will happen is if you run Tmux, the session will keep running. So basically you re-enter the Tmux session. So if you lose your connection, you can just re-enter the Tmux session, and then all your stuff that you were working on will still be there, rather than if you were just in a normal terminal. If the connection's lost, then you've lost everything. But it's also really good for doing development in as well, because of the same purposes, because if it crashes, it's still there. So I have a few different plugins and stuff for it. This plugin basically allows me to restore a little panes window, so like you can have different panes for doing different things. So I'm going to look at the code that I wrote for the original website first, if that would work. What's happened there? That's the question. Right, okay. So actually Z as well is a nice little program that I have. So I use Fish. Has anyone heard of Bash? I use an alternative called Fish, friendly interactive shell. It's really nice. It has a few extra features that I like over Bash. So one of those is that you can use a package manager called Fisher, and you can add little add-ons and stuff. So that this little add-on, Zay, I forget the actual full name for it, allows you to very quickly do things like this. So if you kind of have the general name of a folder but you don't know exactly where it is, you can just type in the first sort of few characters, and based on your history, it'll automatically sort of jump to what it thinks is the closest directory that you're aiming for. is pretty useful. Ranger, little terminal file manager. So here's the directory for the code. Very, very basic. Just a little index page that, oh God, everything goes wrong, doesn't it? Why did you not open in Vim? That is the question. Basically, as an index page, you get the idea. It's HTML and it loads the image. The actual code is written in Python and using serverless. So really simple Python script. All it basically does is there is text file with a bunch of different links to images of parrots that I obtained from a source. And and then it goes and it downloads the Lambda function, downloads that list, and then pulls a URL at random, downloads the image, and then uploads the image back up to an S3 bucket. So then I can, in JavaScript, just load that in the index HTML page. God almighty, why did I decide to do this? Right, let me recreate it. So I'm gonna go in the dev folder. We're gonna make it with cats. Everyone likes cats. So cats. So I already have the initial sort of code copied. Apparently, I thought I didn't. Let me just remove all that. So obviously need serverless folder, need to have an index in serverless, need to have a little serverless config file, need to have a sort of get the cat py script. Now I need to obtain a list of cats. And this is the part that I could just cheat and run the command, or I could show you how I did it. And I think I have to show you how I did it. So there is, oopsie daisy. So I use, has anyone heard of ImageNet? It's a pretty good resource. Basically just has clusters of different keywords and then like lists of, not wording this properly. It basically just has groups of images based on keywords. So if you search a keyword, it'll provide a few different folders basically that have hundreds of images of whatever it is, the keyword that you're looking for. Which one of that is for the cats? So Egyptian cats, tabby cats, tabby cats it is. You know, load. JD to get to the downloads, URLs, JD. If anyone's wondering what those little like how I'm navigating around, I'm using a plugin in Firefox that basically gives me Vim key bindings because I use Vim key bindings for everything. It's so much quicker than having to sit and like use a mouse. So this is just a list, and they're all from various different sites. Most of them are from Flickr, so nobody sue me for copyright, please. You'd think this would be pretty easy, and I can just do Control A to get all of the things, but ImageNet are smart and they stop you from doing that, unfortunately. So, you know, again, could sit and scroll the whole way and, no, I haven't got time. Another Vim key binding is YY that basically just yanks, in this case it yanks the URL. And then what I can do is if I just move to temp, I can curl the content of it.
Sorry.
Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
I'm just going to turn my phone off. Just correcting myself for the rest of this. Keep going.
No, I'll go. No. So all I'm going to do is to curl that URL and then basically echo it into a text file. So if you may have noticed there, whenever I did the little quotation marks, it actually automatically gave me the second one. That's a nice little add-on in Fish as well, where it does it automatically. It does it for parentheses and a few other different ones as well. So it saves some time when you're working on things. Cats, dot text, boom, that'll do that, and then open it up in Vim. You'll notice that there's these little upper sign M things. Basically, that's an issue with docs. Sorry, not docs. With the way Microsoft and Unix systems do line breaks. So that's a line break in DOS-based systems. Emma, what are you doing to me? They are line breaks in God, my brain. There are line breaks in DOS-based systems versus Linux. So I'm just going to have to quickly run a little bit of regex to remove them. Done. And now I have a list of cats. So the way if I very quickly forgetting my own key bindings. If I very quickly go back to the I'm gonna like go insane, I swear. Right, that's not working for some reason, and that's kind of throwing me off. So
does it normally do?
It normally just like, so what's happening? Why is that not working?
Is your terminal width too small to display the prompt, so it's collapsing to just a single character maybe?
There you are. Anyway, yeah.
I mean, like, I could be wrong.
Well, yeah. Little tiny things, they threw me off. Doesn't really matter if I have the second pane. But in this, you can see that basically I have, so whenever I was coding this, I didn't want the source code on GitHub for people to be able to tell where I was getting the images from, because definitely not breaking copyright law at all. So this little line here, it goes and it downloads, the Lambda function downloads the list from the bucket that already exists, and then puts it in temp, and then from there it goes through and goes to the random. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to create an S3 bucket to store that list of links to the different cats. So thankfully AWS has a CLI, which is great, and I can make a bucket like that. So once that's finished, now I have a bucket created. I can list all the buckets that I have up in AWS. Boom. There's the NIDC one. So now I'm going to have to go back to temp. AWS S3, and then I'm going to copy. Boom. Thank God for history, and I don't have to sit and type all that out. Now that exists as a file up there. Next thing I'm thinking of doing is I want to have it on a domain name, so that one's on pirate.today. I couldn't figure out a way of how to work with. I use Cloudflare for my DNS. I couldn't figure out through their CLI how to register a new domain, but I can add domains. So if I CF and then these are all the domain names that I have for my own personal domain. I can add, we'll call it NIDC instead of so now I have a subdomain for my main domain name, NIDC.oibd, where we're going to be hosting the website. I'm just going to switch on dev mode because that will mean that caching and everything else won't be an issue, hopefully. Okay, and then go back to the directory. Boom. So just to update that, actually create a Cname for Github to use later. Right, and then we can work on this. I'm just going to cheat because I haven't got time. 5 minutes? Oh my God, I didn't realize this would take me as long as it really would. So yeah, let me very quickly cheat. Boom. Boom. Serve. I will get this deployed. You bet your ass that I will get this deployed. Regex just to change everything. Get cat. Boom, boom, boom. Yep, that looks good. I'm panicking now, so screw the talk. Let's just get it working. Pirate, gonna be cat instead. Boom. Cat.today. It's actually not though. So I can very quickly change all 3 words. If that had worked, but it did not. Let me check the code. Yeah. Boom. That should work. Very quickly. now copy index boom. Things take a lot longer than what you think they do, and I haven't even got to talk what I was talking about, so that tells me that I need to think about how to give a talk next time around. Everything's a learning experience, though.
Your opening slides were lovely.
Yeah, I know. See, well, this was art. Art was like, you know, you should do like a live demo, and then I was like, how do I do a live demo? And then I thought, like, you know, I can totally code a thing and like show all the stuff that I wanted to talk about, but apparently not. Apparently not. You know, damn it, quickly. I've got 5 minutes, so like, you know, we're not going to get there. Let's show a tiling window manager really quickly. Woof. So. So like so desktop environment versus window manager. Desktop environments will have a window manager, but basically they will build on top of that. So using a window manager, you yourself build on top of that. So I use a tiling window manager called Awesome, which is based on DWM, versus like Gnome, for example, it uses like 20 megs of RAM and barely any processing power, whereas I think Gnome uses something these days around about like 500 megs. Negligible, I suppose, but if you're working on older legacy systems, they don't support that, you know. But there are a lot of benefits to using a tiling window manager aside from that. So if you notice here, every time I open a new window, regardless of what it is, it'll automatically position it, so I don't have to sit and like resize anything. I can do every single thing with keybinds. So if I want to resize something, all I have to do is, what am I doing? My brain stopped.